The conflict between militants in Gaza and Israel has escalated overnight with casualties on both sides. Israel has claimed a civilian was killed in mortar fire while delivering food to soldiers, while in Gaza, families held funerals for 5 people. It comes less than a day after Israel agreed to a ceasefire, which was then rejected by Hamas. Well, for more on this, I'm joined now from Tel Aviv by Gabriel Sassoon, who's an Australian political and foreign media advisor to the Deputy Speaker of Israel's Parliament. Gabriel, thanks so much for your time today. What do you think the ramifications will be of the death of an Israeli civilian in this escalating conflict?
Well, this is the first direct civilian death. There were a couple of heart attacks on the way to bomb shelters. But now this is a question of civilians who've been killed from cities full of civilians being targeted. Ultimately, the rockets have to stop, so there's probably going to be a ground invasion, and I'm hearing that that's likely to happen overnight.
So this could happen very soon, a ground offensive going against certainly what the United States has said should happen. They've warned against a ground offensive.
Yeah, well, look, the Prime Minister, I've been advising the opposition. There's no love lost between the opposition and this Prime Minister, but Netanyahu had no desire to go in on the ground. The Israelis agreed to a ceasefire this morning. Hamas broke it, or they never even agreed to it. So ultimately, the rockets have to stop. There has to be a two-pronged approach. There has to be negotiations with moderates in the West Bank for a two-state solution and for peace. But on the other hand, it's intolerable. I had alarms going off on my phone today. Every 10 seconds, every 30 seconds, there was a new rocket being fired or volley of rockets. I had to run for shelter at about 6:30 p.m. Because there was a volley of 5 or 6 rockets fired at Tel Aviv. And the only reason that nobody was hurt was because Israel's missile defense system is very good. But that's no way to live. And, Australians have to ask themselves, how would they respond to a volley of rockets being fired at Sydney or Melbourne every day? Even though there might be a missile defence system, it's a hypothetical, but try and put yourself in the Israelis' position. So does it seem that a diplomatic solution to this, Gabriel, just simply isn't possible when even a short ceasefire can't be agreed to? No, look, I've travelled to the West Bank. I've been to Ramallah. I've shaken President Abbas's hand and I've looked him in the white of the eyes. And even President Peres, his outgoing Israeli President Peres, believes that he's a partner for peace. This conflict could have been solved yesterday. It's going to take vision, it's going to take seriousness, it's going to take resolve. But you've got to remember that Gaza is not the West Bank. It's being ruled by the sort of Middle Eastern version of Jemaah Islamiyah. But this version of Jemaah Islamiyah has rockets and they're firing it at cities. So this is a completely different level of really terrorism because they're firing it at cities. And so, again, Australians have to ask themselves, what would they do if Australians were running to a bomb shelter every 30 seconds? So ultimately, there has to be a ceasefire in the Gaza Strip. By the way, Hamas didn't want this. Israel didn't want this, and through a convoluted series of events, this is what's happened. And Hamas feels painted into a corner, but the Israelis are certainly painted into a corner, and the rockets ultimately must stop in order for peace talks to continue. But believe me, when the rockets stop and when the terrorists, stop firing at cities, a peace can be agreed to, and the blueprint's there for it. Gabriel Sassoon, we'll have to leave it there, but thanks for your time this morning. My great pleasure, Nina. Thank you.